I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart now, go to bed and say, I love my kids. Nobody on this planet has a better job than me. And I think a big, huge part of that was finding some balance in my life. And that balance, in great part, was due to building a village.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where we're all about bite-sized tips and simple strategies for bright and busy new teachers.
If you're in your first few years of your career and want to make the rollercoaster ride of teaching more fun, streamlined and stress-free, you're in the right place.
We're Ashley and Alicia, the dynamic duo from Rainbow Sky Creations, and we're excited to be your teacher mentors on the go. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we're unstoppable. Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Have you ever felt the weight of the world on your shoulders as a teacher? I know I certainly have. Today's guest is actually going to help you with that feeling. And you're probably thinking, how? Is she going to come and take some of that paperwork off my desk? Is she going to answer some of those emails? The answer to those things is no. But our guest today is Kylie, and she's going to talk to us about how we can build a village as a teacher. Now, we've often heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Kylie has taken that idea and that notion and said, you know what? It takes a village to educate a child. And she has gone far and wide to reach out to all sorts of different people to help educate the students in her classroom. And I'm telling you, some of the stories she has to share is amazing. I could listen to Kylie all day long. I first connected with her over the internet, actually, through Instagram and email. She emailed us and we decided to write a blog post together. And it was all around this idea of building a village and how teachers can do this and how it can benefit your students, but not only your students, you as the teacher. And after we wrote this blog post, we published it and I said, Kylie, you need to come on the podcast. People need to hear this from you. People need to hear your stories because they are honestly so brilliant. I walked away from this episode feeling uplifted. I felt that passion for education inside me, and I feel like you're going to feel that too. Kylie is a teacher that has won awards. She's a teacher that's worked full time. Now she's a teacher that has gone back into the classroom after having her own children. So she's experienced a lot and she has so much to share. Enjoy this interview. Kylie, tell me, what made you first reflect on the idea that a village is important in an educational setting?
So this actually goes all the way back to me becoming a mom. But even a little bit further back from that, when I started teaching for the first 6 years of my career, I was that teacher who came super early. I was the teacher who stayed really late. Teacher was my full identity. It's all I've ever wanted to be in my life. I eat, slept, breathed teacher. And I had a lot of success. It was so incredibly, I love being a teacher. It's the best job in the world. But I just every night laid my head down and was like, oh my gosh, I love my kids, but this is a really hard job. And when I got pregnant and became a mom, I started being really aware that I'd have to be something else besides just a teacher. And it made me really scared. And it made me realize I wouldn't be able to be the same teacher I had been for the first 6 years of my career. So I found myself thinking, I'm going to have to be dramatically different, a very different teacher than what I was before children. And one of the things they tell new moms all the time is it takes a village. It takes a village. And I just took that same mantra into my classroom with me. And when I realized I didn't really have the capacity to do all of the super fun, like cute things like classroom transformations and all the exciting extra things that make being a first grade teacher so awesome, I didn't have the capacity to do that anymore. Instead of looking at that as like a negative, I just started reaching out to people and asking others to bring that magic into my classroom. And what I found is that it was actually way more impactful than when I was doing it all on my own anyway. So that's where it started, just the baby idea, but it's really blossomed and bloomed since I started doing that.
That is fabulous. I really resonate with this idea of becoming a mother and then having those two roles. So you've got motherhood and teacher, and it is a massive juggle. If anyone has ever left the classroom and then come back in a part-time capacity or a full-time capacity and you've got babies at home, it really is it is a different life. And I think we mentor lots of new teachers, and one of the wonderful things for new teachers that don't have families is that they've got the time to really inject everything into their classrooms. But the thing that you said the most that just stood out to me was that once you started to ask for help and you got more people in, it was even more impactful on the learners in your classroom.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing when I'm trying to talk to new teachers is be like, hey, I have this hindsight because I'm a mom now, and this was this big life change for me, but don't wait until you
Yeah.
have another role. Or I think it's so important for us all to have more roles than just being a teacher. Like I look back to those first 6 years of my career and truly, was I a great teacher? I think I was doing my very best. But now that there's like all these other parts of me that fill my soul, I think it makes me so much better in the classroom, so much more lighthearted, so much more able to enjoy the job. And like I used to go to bed and say, this job's really hard. I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart now, go to bed and say, I love my kids. Nobody on this planet has a better job than me. And I think a big, huge part of that was finding some balance in my life. And that balance, in great part, was due to building a village.
Amazing. So, we're going to really break this down and talk about how you did it, how listeners can do the same. You're going to share some wonderful stories with us. So, you have 5 different ways that you suggest that you can start building this village as a teacher. So, let's talk about the first one, which is starting with asking for help, which can be a really tricky one for teachers. But whether you've been teaching for a minute or whether you've been teaching for 20 years, it's really important to ask for help. So, can you talk a little bit about asking for help?
Yeah, so I think what's really cool about just the asking for help piece is that it can be really scary to put yourself out there. But when you go into it with absolutely no expectations, you'll be shocked at how many actual responses you get. So for me, this started just with a blank canvas. I had 3 or 4 sentences like, hey, I teach first grade. I think what you do is really cool. And I'd love for you to come talk to my first graders about it. Would you be interested in making a big impact in a child's life? I just mass sent it out to everybody I could find that shared some passions with my students. And I ended up doing it really late at night. I think when I was nursing my little one, I did it on Instagram DMs. I did it on emails. Simone Biles still has a unread Instagram DM from me. And I just started like shooting my shot. And I went into it with zero cares, pretty much zero expectations. I didn't know really any of these people. I did vet them out. We're all professionals and people with background checks and things like that. But I think I sent so many that it didn't hurt if I got a no or a no response because I got so many yeses. So I think just that ability to ask, and I started very small with something that was attainable for people to be able to help. So I just asked for 10 minutes of people's time. They didn't need to bring any things, they didn't need to prep anything. My kids were just going to ask them questions. And what I found is that when I asked for just a little bit of help, people delivered like tenfold on that. So one of the things that happened is I asked a architecture professor if she'd mind answering some questions about bridges. One of my kids said they were really into bridges. And I was like, cool, let's go. And she responded back to the email like, hey, actually, I was thinking in addition to asking the questions, would you have time for me to deliver a presentation, read this really awesome kids engineering book, and also design a STEM lesson for them to build their own bridges? And I was like, yeah, I would love if you would do all of those things for my class. And then when she showed up my doorstep, she also showed up with 4 armful bags filled with swag for my students, like
Oh,
water bottles
wow.
from the School of Architecture, notebooks for them to sketch in. So I asked her for 10 minutes and she gave me all of this. And it really, just to give one other story, like one of my kids wanted to learn about lizards. Again, all I asked for was 10 minutes of his time. And he responded, hey, I know he wants to talk about lizards. I'm really into all animals. Would it be okay if I brought my pet tortoise with me? And I was like, yeah, you can bring your pet tortoise to school. So then the next day, I literally have a tortoise walking around my classroom. And so I just think about the opportunities and the real life hands on experience that my kids have gotten because I've been able to put myself out there and ask for help. And it's just so much greater than what I could have delivered on my own. So again, just like putting yourself out there, a few sentences, and asking everybody. Like I will ask anybody and anyone, people I know, people I don't know, the more the merrier.
You're giving people an opportunity to give back as well, which so many people want to be able to do that, but they might not have access to a school, or they remember when they were a kid and they loved engineering too, and how much of an impact that could have made in their lives as a kid, or it could make in their own kids' lives. So I think that they're helping you, but you're also helping them in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think that's part of the scary part about asking for help is you think I need people to come do for me, but they're
Mm,
not like you it's this like symbiotic relationship of that the schools and the communities when they're truly like merged, it's better for everyone. Like it's not only better for the individuals who come, but I think that opening the door to schools really shows people like the magic that our kids are doing every day and that we're experiencing. And I think sometimes when they don't get that, it makes schools a little bit like less connected for them. And I
yeah.
just think that connection between community and school is not just good for the community and for the individuals, it's good for the kids. And when more is good for the kids, they're going to grow up and give back to the community. So I really do just think bringing that kind of full circle moment of, hey, you're an adult who is doing something really cool with your life. How are you going to give that back to kids? It just, I don't know. I just think it's like this big rainbow of opportunities for everybody involved.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say on the reaching out to people and asking people for the help at Rainbow Sky, we get emails like all the time, DMs, emails every single day, people asking us for things, all sorts of different things. The first way we connected was that you said that you had read our blog and listened to our podcast, and perhaps could we do something together? Now, it's not always a good fit, but often it is. And I have created so many wonderful relationships now that we've got a connection. I feel like we're friends. We've been chatting back and forth online. People are used to receiving requests. And if they can't fulfill it, then they can't do it. But they may be able to. And then you've opened yourself a door and an opportunity up for everyone.
Yeah, and I think having little kids to back you also it gives me we're all doing something great for kids here, guys. Everybody wants to help kids. So I totally agree. I've gotten really good at just putting myself out there. And again, just like you mentioned, the connection with you, I don't think I ever would have done that in the early stages of my career. But I think what's so important to frame when we're talking about new teachers is like they can do it too. You don't have to wait until you feel like a confident teacher or until you need help, just go get it. Go start making the connections now.
Absolutely. So, talking about going out and getting it, your next point to building this village is to look near and far for villages.
Yeah. So for me, I do want to say I live in a big college town or a university. Sorry. I live in a big college town. So there's a lot of villagers really close to me. And that is different and unique than anywhere I've ever lived before. I've mostly taught in more rural schools. So having all these opportunities close was really exciting. But what I do want to say is you don't have to live somewhere with a lot of people to build a village. And some of the coolest villagers that have come into my circle are from really far away. So to give an example of that, one of my students wanted to learn about dinosaurs. There are no dinosaur areas experts in this area. And I searched very near in every avenue. And by searching, I mostly mean I just type into Google like paleontology and the name of my city and see what pops up, things like that. And I think about museums and different professionals in the community that might be able to network, but I couldn't find anyone. So I literally just went to Instagram and I typed in the hashtag paleontology. And when I did, I started like seeing some different paleontologists. And one of the ones that popped up was Elaine Howard. And she's actually a paleontologist by hobby and a lawyer by day. And she has written this whole book, The Passion in the Bones, and how paleontology has really enriched her life. And I thought, what a good fit, because what I want my kids to be exposed to is passionate people. I want them to see people who are living life so excited by learning every day and like on fire for what they do. And she was like exactly that. So again, I just shot my shot. I sent her an Instagram DM and she said absolutely she would Zoom in. And the Zoom connection is so cool. I think she was there showing us in her studio all of the different replicas and some different fossils she had. And my little student had her fossils. So they were showing each other and they were able to just have a really free flowing conversation. And I think that's so cool. And she has come back every single year because let me tell you something kids love, it's dinosaurs. So
Yes.
I don't have to make the connection every year, right? Once I've made it, now I get to have her for life. And another villager from far away, we got to talk to a chef in his kitchen. So he got to show us all the stuff. And another one was a meteorologist. We got to see the newsroom and like where they film, like the weather and things like that. So I think those opportunities from far away, even if you're at a rural school, you can bring it right into your classroom. And we just put it on the smart board. Or sometimes I'll even let kids do a one-on-one if they just have a real passion that maybe the rest of the class isn't as interested in. And I think the one-on-one would be meaningful. So just bringing people in from far away. I just never want people to think, oh, she was able to build a village because there were a lot of people there. When the truth is, there are people everywhere who care about us as teachers. And sometimes you just got to do a little digging.
Yeah, what a great way to truly differentiate for your children by giving them a one on one with something that they're passionate about. We're always talking about catering for the different needs of the kids, but that is just amazing. I could see how impactful that could be in a child's life.
Yeah, passion projects, a lot of this does started when I started doing passion projects, which this doesn't exactly go with what we're talking about, but
Yeah.
right at that same time I had that mommy transition, we also had the COVID transition. And I had a lot of former students reaching out to me, their parents saying, hey, my kid just doesn't like learning anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh, but they loved learning with me. And I think I realized so much of the learning that I was doing before hinged on me. And I needed the learning to hinge on themselves and like this internal desire, which is when I started bringing passion projects into my classroom. And again, that's like another tangent, but I think it's been so meaningful for children because they've learned, hey, your learning doesn't hinge on a teacher. It doesn't hinge on like the experiences we have in a school. And I think connecting them with other people who are passionate about the things they're passionate just has taken it to another level.
Totally, because we're drawn to things that we're passionate about. I remember I had a class, 2 year 4 classes in a row, and I introduced Genius Hour with them, which is like a passion project.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. Some of the things that they were researching and coming up with were just incredible. And they weren't things that I was particularly interested in, but I was interested in what they were discovering. But also, there were things that I couldn't have helped them with. So it was amazing that they just went out and it gave them that autonomy and that independence to become learners, become interested, curious, all of those things that we say good learners are.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And I think 100% for me in doing Genius Hour passion project work, it's just about like letting go this narrative that the teacher has to be everything.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because it not only like I would call my students actually my biggest villagers, like there's all these outside community people, but my students, when I started to let go and say, hey, I can't do as much, really stepped up. And I think you see that in a Genius Hour or passion project type setting. You watch kids just truly take leadership and take ownership of the learning. And it's mutually beneficial because it's a lot less work for me because they're doing the work. And I know
Yes.
that's feel weird as a teacher, but I think that in the act of being okay with doing less work, my kids get to do so much more work and they grow so much more. And then I'm doing less work. So I'm more rested and happier and able to enjoy them and be more present with them. So I think the more ownership the kids have and that passion and that we can get them to drive the learning, it's better for the kids and it's better for the teachers.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the next suggestion, which is all about varying requests. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, what I mean is that everyone's going to be able to help in different ways. So, what I have found is that a lot of people want to help. Some people want to give you their time, right? That what I was talking about before, like I'm just asking people for 10 minutes. And some people truly did just show up and give me the 10 minutes. Still amazing. They don't have to give me anything extra. If you will give me 10 minutes to let first graders ask you questions, I will love you forever. Another thing that I ask for a lot is like monetary donations for the classroom because some people don't have time, but they still care. So I do a lot of things like writing grant requests or doing like crowdfunding, like the Amazon wish list, things like that. But some people just want to click a button and support you. And I think it's important not to like overlook that. Again, I think it can feel a little cringe sometimes, but again, you're doing something good for children and you're also allowing people to feel good about helping children. So it's that mutual benefit. And I think also Another type of request I ask for a lot is just like advice and expertise. One of the big projects that I'm doing most recently is building an outdoor classroom. And I won some grant funding to be able to fund the project. But I just called a parent of one of my students because I'd been to their house and they had this really cool like playhouse that he had built. And so I just called him, was like, hey, I'm about to start this big construction project. Would you mind just being a person I can ask questions? Like, maybe how much lumber do I need to buy? Like, I was literally just thinking he was going to walk me through what I might need to do. And he said, you know what? I think I want to build the whole thing. And I was like,
Oh,
you want to build the whole
what?
thing? He was like, yeah, I think I want to build the whole thing. And I was like, I can't pay you. And he was like, I think I want to do it. I want to volunteer. I'd love to get out there and build. And I'm going to do this with you. And I was like, okay. And the next thing I know, my student's mom is also a bit of an artist. She came out and sketched the place, she painted it, and they've spent like the last 5 months coming out, putting hours of work into this space and just like bringing my vision to life, all because I asked for just a little piece of advice. And I think that's what's so powerful about asking people for different things, because everyone has something different to offer you. But when you like are able to think about what people can offer or give a varied opportunity to help, I think you'll find that you'll have a lot of different people saying yes. So again, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's a specific presentation you need someone to give, maybe it's a donation in your class, or maybe it's just advice. But I think that again, when you have lots of ways that you need help, people will show up. And even if it's as simple as reading a book, I have a story time reader who comes to my class. She comes like every other week. And when I tell you, it has been such a blessing for all of us to have her. And literally, like, she comes and reads a story. And that is, we used to always do that in elementary school. It was like a staple of elementary school, but I don't know if it still is where you are. I haven't seen it in a very long time. And all she does is she comes and she gives us her time. And she is so kind and so warm with the kids. And I get to take a little step back, and I'm still sitting there and I'm helping some kids who need some help listening, but I'm not the sole one in charge.
Mm.
And it gives me a second to breathe, and it gives me a second to collect myself. It gives my students a second to just enjoy a really good book. And I think the beautiful thing about having her as someone who's consistent in my classroom is that she sees me. So she sees me on good days. She sees me on days when I struggle. And she's just there to say, hey, you're doing a really good job. Hey, I read a book to these kids today and they couldn't sit still for more than 3 seconds. I'm really impressed that you're able to teach them all day. And I know that's like silly, but that feels really good. Like,
Yeah.
we can be on an island as teachers, right? So just like having someone there to recognize me. And she also sees them doing great things. She's, oh my God, this is the coolest class ever. They do awesome things too. I don't want it to sound like, it's just when they're doing negative, she sees me, she sees the good too. And I think reading a book is a pretty attainable ask. A lot of people can come and read a book, but it's been pretty transformational, I think, for me as a teacher, just to have someone in my corner and have them there constantly. They're not an administrator we have our teacher friends, we have our administrators, and all of those people there to support us. And those should absolutely be a part of your village. But having, again, just that outsider, a perspective, someone who's pouring into your class with you, I think it can make a really just positive impact on both you and the kids.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day with a famous business woman. And she actually said one of the things that one of her children really wanted her to do was come and read a novel to the class that they'd read together at home. And she said, I don't really volunteer at the school very much. I don't have a lot of time for that. And I don't really enjoy it. What I do really enjoy is sharing these novels with my kids. So I said to her, look, I'll ask your teacher. And the teacher said, yeah, sure, come in, read this book. So every Thursday afternoon, she came in and they read this novel, and it took them quite a while to get through. She actually said she was surprised with how long it took to get through, but that's because she's not a teacher. Anyway, they finished the novel. She said she couldn't believe how much she enjoyed it. Her child loved it because she had her mum there that was contributing to school life in a different way that no one else's mum was. But not only that, the class loved it so much, they said as soon as they'd finished this novel, they said, what book are we going to read next? So they decided together to read another book, and the teacher was like, yes, please come in. The kids are loving reading. This is fabulous. And I just thought, even as a teacher, I would not have thought to do that. And that's a really great way that a parent could get involved in the classroom, or even like a retiree who's at home, that like would offer them some sort of value for the day to come in and read, even if it is just for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying is how I think it's felt for both me and my storytime reader, Miss Laura, is like, it's just a relationship we don't see enough in schools. We just don't see enough like another adult coming in to tell children, hey, we care about you. Hey, we love you
Yeah.
enough to show up and we love you enough to give you our time and to share a story with you. And it's such a beautiful moment for literacy too, is when school as teachers were like, we have to read a book to meet this standard. We got to read this
Yes.
book and do this project. And it's just this pure time of let's read a book and have some fun. Let's get comfy. And I just think it's a joy that is something that your teacher can always bring. And obviously, I give a great read aloud, but it's a different relationship, a different perspective. And I think that alternate voice is really powerful.
Yeah. How did you meet Miss Laura, or how did you connect with her?
So Miss Laura is a church member of a local church.
Yep.
And so she has designed a whole program where she comes to the school with some other people who just want to make a difference. And they come and have different partner teachers that they come in with. So there's, I think, about 10 of them that come to our school, which is super, just could not, and it was just a random assignment. But I think what's cool about me and Miss Laura is they exchange cell numbers and it's become like this big relationship. Like she's come to babysit my children. She just had her first grandbaby. So again, it's this little classroom village has also just become an extended family for me. So she's just been a really big blessing in my life, both professionally and personally.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next idea that we're going to talk about is seems like an obvious one, but we're going to talk it through anyway, and that is about being an open door.
Yeah, I think being an open door for me just means being that teacher on campus that's going to say yes. Like when people ask me favors, when they ask me to do something, obviously we all have capacity, but I just want to be known as the teacher who's my door's open. Come on in. One example of this is that one of the things my school does is they run an after school, like aftercare program where they come in, they do like homework with the kids and some other things, but they were looking for teachers to volunteer their classrooms to be used to have the space. Someone coming in your classroom after hours, you're not there to monitor it. Your stuff might get messed with. But when they asked, I was like, yeah, come on, come use my classroom. No big deal. And so I think being that open door allowed some other people to come in my classroom, see what the environment looked like. And one of the people that came in is an engineer, and he was doing some engineering projects again with the kids after school. So I had never met him before, would have had no contact with him, but he happened to be in my classroom. And he reached out and was like, hey, I saw you have a guinea pig in your class. Are we into animals? Because I'm into getting kids into agriculture and I would love to have some chickens at this school. And I was like, you'd love to have some chickens at this school? He was like, yeah, I'd love to have some chickens at this school, but I need a classroom for them to brood in. Like, I need someone to host baby chickens in their classroom. And he's asking me if it's okay. And I literally like am stopping, like sobbing, like, you want me to have baby chickens in my classroom? Like, I would love to have baby chickens in my classroom. Like, one, just because they're cute. Are you kidding me? They're these little fluff balls.
Yeah.
Two, what a cool learning experience. We teach plant and animal survival in first grade, and my kids get to see a full life cycle. So they get to watch the chicks grow up, and then eventually they're going to lay eggs for us. And I think I did nothing for that. I did nothing. I said yes to an after school program coming in my room. Look, I'm going to cry. But I think what's been so fascinating to me is this happened more recently. So this past school year is you could say a lot of the things that happened with me building a village was like luck, that it was like serendipity, that I was in the right place in the right time. But I have been putting my head down and working on my own in this isolated vacuum for 8 years. And when I opened the door and started asking for help and just saying, hey, who wants to come in to my classroom? All of these things started happening to me. So I just think for me, it's been this message that like help gets more help. And when you
Mhm.
ask and you open that door, like you never know what's going to come. And sure, maybe it's luck. I can't tell anyone like, hey, if you say yes to some things, baby chickens are going to come in your classroom,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's not the reality. But the reality is you don't know what's waiting behind the door unless you open it. And it's been really cool for me because it's happened like more times than I have stories for of people just showing up so big for me in ways I never expected. Sorry, I'm going to stop crying so much and tell one more story. But one of the things I felt I really had to give up when I became a mom was being a school gardener. I was like, that is so much work, starting a school garden and maintaining it. And that's not possible for me when I have tiny kids at home. And I was also moving at the same time. I can't start a garden from scratch. And when I moved here, I was like, I really loved gardening, but that season of my life is on pause, maybe until my kids are older.
Yeah.
And then, like, I got an email 2 months into working at my new school. Hey, we'd love to gift a school a garden. All we need is a teacher to volunteer to run a garden club within school hours. And I was just like, you
I'm
want to
your
give me
teacher.
the garden? I was like, yes. So again, all I had to do was say yes. And then it was like all of the work that I had previously felt that I had to do all on my own. There was a crew full of people there to do it and give it for me. And I just think, I wonder how many opportunities I missed before when I was too afraid, or when I thought it all relied on me, or when I thought these are my kids, I have to be the one to give them everything. And how many different opportunities I have now because I realized actually I not only can't give you everything, but I shouldn't be the one giving you everything. So I just think for me, when I think about the new teachers and young teachers who are just starting, I just really hope in my whole heart we start opening those doors a lot sooner and just being that teacher that says, yeah, sure, like it's me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the tears that are coming out in you is the passion, but also for me, the sense I'm getting from you, and we can see each other. I know a podcast is not a visual medium, but it's like a weight is lifted off your shoulders because your students are still getting everything they need and more, but you don't have that heavy weight weighing down on you as a teacher. And I think that can be one of the hardest things as teachers. We've got our head down because we're working and there's so much for us to do and there's so much for us to handle and things are being thrown our way all of the time. But if our heads are down and we're not looking up, it's so hard to see those opportunities that are coming by and coming our way.
Yeah, I
And for us to feel
100,
fulfilled as well as the students,
yes.
yes, that's great. But you, I can see too, are feeling really fulfilled too, which I think can be a tricky thing as a mum going back to work when you've got little ones at home as well. So you're going to work and you're getting that fulfillment and you're learning and they're learning. Like it's a win.
Yes, 100%. And I think that there was a big piece of me that was so scared I was going to lose teaching. I was going to maybe lose the passion and the fun of it when I took this little, what I call like a step back in my mind. And I think I'm just so eternally just grateful for all the experiences that have happened since I took that step back. Because I think when I realized I didn't have to be a perfect teacher and that there were people to support me and that I wasn't alone and that my efforts were enough, it just allowed me to see this profession in a whole new way. So I just feel like I not only got my fire for teaching back, but I got it like 1,000 times better than I ever expected. And yeah, it is a lot of passion and a lot of gratitude. And I really do think happy teachers teach happy kids. So if we're putting our heads down and we're working and we're so stressed, I was putting on a really pretty good show the first years of my career, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not a great teacher, but I'm going to go out here and fake it till I make it. And I'm going to teach my little heart out. And I was teaching my heart out. But what I didn't realize is that, like, when I went home, it was that weight that you were talking about.
Mhm.
And I was so stressed and I was just always thinking, oh, I should have done this better. I should have done that better. Like, I didn't reach this kid the way I wanted. And I didn't realize how heavy that felt in my classroom until I let it all go. And now I'm just like, okay, I'm just as effective or way more than I was before. And now I also get to have a blast while I'm doing it every day and just go home. And I'm not going to bring 8,000 papers home. I'm going to go have a dance party with my kids. And that dance party is making me a better teacher than all these papers I was filling out. So
Yes.
yeah, it's been a big gift.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things throughout our entire chat so far is that we haven't mentioned the word curriculum or meeting outcomes. And I know that there's going to be teachers listening to this, and I feel like I probably would have been one of these teachers that's okay, this is all great, but like, where does the curriculum fit in? We've got all of these things that we need to fit in, we need to squash in, we need to do this. And I think that what you're saying is we can take a little break from that and we can learn for learning's sake. We can enjoy our time together. Not everything has to be like super in the box of the curriculum.
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's just let's just take the pressure out of education. And I know that feels like, oh, because I think everything can feel like so much pressure. Like I have this pacing guide, I have this, all this stuff. But for me, the pressure takes the joy out of it. And like, when do kids really learn? When it's joyful. And I just think how my whole mindset is switched from how do I meet grade level standards and benchmarks and get kids where they need to be to this new mindset where I'm like, how do I make kids fall in love with learning so hard that they're never going to stop learning? And I think what I've found is when I was able to make this switch, and for me, the switch is joy. How are we purposefully planning for joy in our classroom? And that doesn't just start or end with the kids, it starts and ends with us. We have to be that model of joy. And when I think of kids, what do I want them to see in their closest mentor in the school building, which is their teacher? I want them to see someone who loves their job. I want them to see someone who's on fire with their passions, who took their learning and found something that sets their heart on fire. Because I don't need every kid to become a teacher. Would I love some kids to become teachers? Absolutely. But I want every child to know that what they're learning in school right now, one day can lead them on a path where they feel as passionate about what they're doing as I feel in what I'm doing. And I just think it's just more powerful. And I still get the curriculum done. We still do curriculum. And even in passion projects, and I know you'll know because you did Genius Hour, I can teach a main idea and details lesson through Genius Hour. So it's just like taking everything I'm doing and wrapping it back around the kids instead of starting with the standards. So yeah, I think 100% my mindset has shifted to where, yes, all those things in education still have their place, but what's king, it's going to be the joy in the room.
Yeah. And those feelings, that emotion is contagious. When you've got a teacher, an adult that's running a classroom and they're stressed and they're rushed and the weight of the world is on their shoulders, you can see that coming out in kids. And honestly, this has got nothing to do with teachers, but there's too much of that in education here in Australia. I know I felt it myself. I see it in my own kids' teachers sometimes. I see it in my colleagues and friends and my business partner, Alicia, teachers all over the world. There's too much on their shoulders. And I think as a collective, we do need to lighten that load so that we do get these feelings of fun and joyfulness and just exploring and having a good time, because that's one of the reasons why I went into education in the first place. It's a pretty great job. You don't have to go out and deal with really awful things that are in the world every day. You're going in and you're dealing with kids, and kids are the best, and you get to share stories and dress up and explore and be creative. And I think that it's sad to say, but we've lost a little bit of that in education. And that's why I'm loving this conversation with you so much, Kylie, because we're bringing it back in, but not in that heavy way.
Yeah, no, I could not agree with everything you're saying. So much more is teachers have to feel light to
Mm.
do this work. You have to feel light. The people in this world who should feel the least amount of stress should be teachers, because we have to have the patience and the joy to handle 4,000 different things coming our way from 4,000 different angles. I have to preserve myself in order to be the best I'm going to be for kids. And I think when I think about me as a young teacher, if you asked me what my number one feeling about myself as a teacher, it would have been like self-doubt. I just was like the worst. I am not great at this. And I just remember telling myself, you are not a natural teacher. You are not good at all of these things. And it's what I think that I've learned the longer I teach is that if we're showing up and choosing children, we're great teachers. Like and could we grow? Absolutely. But those feelings of self doubt, they just don't have a place. You have chosen children as your career, and that is enough. And I think we can all strive to be better and to do more and all the things. But I think when I stopped trying to be a better teacher, I became like a way better teacher. And I know that's like a weird notion. Obviously, I'm not telling people don't try to become a better teacher because, right, you got a lot to learn in your years, but just realizing it's not that pressure. I don't have to learn all of that right now. Like I have a whole career. And I think we put new teachers in this vacuum of you have to be proficient and you have to be great and your kids have to meet these standards now. And so what I see is like young around teachers burning out really fast. Like in my cohort of girls who went to college together, there's very few of us who have remained in the classroom. And I think when I switched to realize, okay, maybe this year I'm not going to be great at this thing, but it's going to add 5 years to my teaching career because I love what I do, that's so worth it. I want to see more career teachers coming into this profession, people who are starting in year one, but they're still going to be loving their life in year 20. And we do have a lot of excellent veteran educators out there, but I just think you don't get to experience all the joy and the love that is teaching until you've been in it for a long period of time. But we're not going to get in that long period of time if we're burnt out in the first few. So yeah, I'm all about new teachers, just like it's okay. And all teachers, it is okay to not be the best at everything every day. You're just not going to be. So we're going to take the pressure off.
Yeah, it's not possible. Let's stop reaching for something that's impossible and start really, this is going to tie us into the last point, which is about expressing gratitude.
Yeah. And I think that one has been so cool because it's little, right? People are coming in and doing things for your kids. And that can feel like, okay, boom, it stops there, right? It's this transactional, like I asked you for something, you came and delivered it, and it's done. I obviously am incredibly grateful. I've been crying through this conversation. There's a lot of gratitude here. So I do tell people thank you in person a lot, but a few of the things I've started doing, one of the things is I've started pre-printing these like silly certificates. It's just on a piece of paper. It says like, you helped first graders today, love Miss Altier's class. And at the end, I whip it out. I'm like, can we take a picture of you with the certificate? And you would be shocked how many like business people have this hanging in their office. Like it's some sort of official certification that I've given them. It's just a piece of paper that took me 5 seconds to make, but it means a lot to people. And the other thing I've started doing is I've started sharing student work with people when it's done. If you came and talked to us about the weather and my kid wrote a book about rainbows, I'm going to blur their little name out, but I'm going to send you pictures of what they did and say thank you. And sometimes I have the kids write handwritten thank you notes, but not always because they're tiny, and nothing you do that expresses gratitude has to take a long time. So I want like everybody to think, what is something easy I can do? Maybe it's a certificate. Maybe it's a quick email that says, hey, that meant a lot to me that you came. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I just want to tell a quick story about something that happened when I sent that follow-up email. So I had a professor come, Dr. Remsen, and actually he zoomed in. So it was one of the Zoom calls about birds and specifically owls. And he was the curator of birds at a local museum. And when he said yes, he was like, oh yeah, I'll give you 10 minutes. And he was one of the ones who gave me 10 minutes. It was 10 minutes. It was a Zoom call. The little girl asked him questions. He answered. That was it. And that is great. But it was very brief, and that's what he gave us. And that was wonderful. But she went on to write a little nonfiction book all about owls. And I just sent him the pictures. And I said, hey, I just wanted you to know that she created all of this, and a lot of the information that you told her like was in the book. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your passion with her. And he responded and was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that someone so young could produce something like this. And again, it's just like one sentence on every page. It was great, but it wasn't like revolutionary. It's stuff that we know as teachers, our kids are capable of doing every day. It wasn't shocking to me that she was able to produce it. But when people aren't around kids, they don't know what kids can do. Our kids do amazing things every day and nobody sees it, but we see it. So I shared it with him and he said, I'm so impressed with this. I would love to give her a private tour of the museum. So he opened the museum up on a Sunday. Her and her entire family got to go. And he sent me these pictures of her holding like owl specimens, which is a dead owl, which I saw them. Oh my gosh, this is so insane. I hope she liked it. I hope I didn't set my kid up on this weird experience, but she loved it. She came to school on Monday and was like, I want to be a curator of my own museum when I grow up. And I was like, what kind of 6-year-old says curator?
Yes.
This is so cool. And she just had this experience. I don't think very many people in my state that are near this museum will ever have. She had this once in a lifetime experience with a curator telling her about everything. She got to hold it. She got to be the only one in the museum. She got to experience it with her mom and her sister, who were just beaming with pride. And he not only did that for her, but now every time there's something local he hears about that's for kids, like a local swamp did like a little birding, he'll send it to me. He'll say, hey, I thought of your student. She hasn't been in my class in 2 years and he's still thinking about her. And I think that's so beautiful. And if I hadn't sent him a thank you note, it would have stopped at this 10 minutes. And this 10 minutes was great. But that follow up email got me so much for my student and for my child. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think when you show people their power, hey, what is the power you have by giving to children? They get a little bit addicted to it. So he'll ask me, like, hey, any little ones interested in birds this year? And that doesn't happen every year. Like dinosaurs, a sure thing. Birds, I want to go like every other year. Maybe we
Yeah.
get a but like he wants to come back and help, and you get people like banging down the door to come be a part of your village. And I think that's one of the ways just expressing gratitude, again, just enriches the experience for the teacher, the community member, and for your children.
I love that story so much. I think you're bringing the adults in and they're experiencing the fun and the joyful part of education, which is so cool because, as you said, then they become invested in it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tell me, Kylie, how can our listeners come and join your village?
Yes, this space is very new to me, but I recently started a little teacher Instagram. It's called Miss Altier's Village. And I just think, again, I am so incredibly grateful for my village. Like, I can think of no better way to pay that forward than to help other teachers build their own villages. I will be your girl. If you send me a DM, I will answer you. I don't have very many followers, so pick me. If you want to talk teacher, if you're having a rough day, if you're trying to find the balance, if you want to start a village, I am your person. I would love to connect. And another big thing, big project I've working on, if you have any little ones who are learning how to read, whether you're a teacher or a parent, I've made a website called readwithkylie.com where I'm just putting out a bunch of free content to help little ones learn to read. So I'd love to be a part of your village that way if you're looking for resources or ideas to continue to grow in literacy, because that's a big passion of mine. And yeah, I just am so honored to connect with any new teachers. And even if just one teacher out there listens to this and thinks, hey, maybe I'm not alone either, I think it would be the greatest gift to know I had a little part in that.
For sure. That's one of the most amazing things about modern day is that we can connect like this. I'm in Australia. You're all the way over in the US. We've been able to connect. We're going to share with our audience, which is worldwide, and share that passion for education, which is just amazing. We need more of it. I want more of it. So this conversation, I think, has been such an important one. And I think it's going to really inspire people to get out there and just give it a whirl. Ask people for help. See what happens.
Yeah. And again, even if it's just to read a book in your room, you want someone to come read a book. So you can start small, you can start big. Maybe Simone Biles will hear this and respond to my DM. We're still waiting. But yeah, so I hope everybody goes out there and just picks, even if it's just someone asking for a little more help than you did the year before. I think it makes a really big impact on all of us.
Yeah, we've been joking offline saying, I want to reach out to Simone Biles and see if she'll come on the podcast.
I know,
Kylie's, do it and see what
do it.
happens.
If you shoot your shot and win, then I'll be like, it'll be a win for both of us.
Yes, I totally agree. We will make sure that we put those links that you just spoke about in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. I've loved listening to your stories.
Thank you so much for having me.